Now, we go to the controversial CI, the CI that metamorphosed from 73 to 77 and now 78 and still having problems in the law courts. As you know, the Supreme Court has dismissed an interlocutory application to stop Parliament from continuing to deal with that document. Well, Justice Julius Ansah, who sat on the matter, thinks Parliament cannot be stopped. Well, part of his, judgment is anchored on a celebrated Ghanaian authority, that is Tufo versus Attorney General, 1980. And part of it, I was in court and the arguments back and forth. The Attorney General, Benjamin Kumbo, made a strong reference to that particular ruling. Now, that part of the ruling, which was this ruling is anchored on, was to the effect that, and I'm reading holding 2 of that ruling, it says that the court did not and could not inquire into how Parliament went about its business. That constituted the state of affairs as between the legislature and the judiciary, which had been crystallized in certain articles that he mentions, of the Constitution. Of particular importance were the provisions of Article 96, which has stated categorically that the freedom of speech, debate, and proceedings of Parliament should not be questioned in any court or place out of Parliament, insofar as Parliament had acted by virtue of the powers conferred upon it by the provisions of the Constitution. Its actions within Parliament were a closed book. That's the instructive part. So for as long as Parliament is acting in consonance with the constitutional provisions that vests the power to do its work, the court was not ready to interfere with Parliament's work. Questions are coming up. I'll start with the Member of Parliament. You're excited at this decision of the court?
Oh, yes, because we've held the view, that is, for us members of Parliament, we've held the view that the independence of all the arms of government should be, we should try as much as a nation to ensure that we leave it. Okay, and for that matter, when this issue went to court, and I am a bit, what makes me a bit worried is the fact that we had members of Parliament, or some members of Parliament, leading this whole pack. You know, a former Attorney General, and also my own friend, my friend, Joe Gatti and Atachia, also very good friends, close for that matter. And I am a bit worried when it comes to the institution of Parliament. I have been there, and my almost 4 years in Parliament has taught me a number of things. And I think that most of the things that, or the perception of people of Parliament has to do with the way we members of Parliament ourselves have carried the institution have handled the institution of Parliament. Because I am of the view that, hey, this is a place I work. This is an arm of government, very strong one, and to keep it...
But subject to the Constitution.
Yes, it says
subject to the Constitution.
Certainly,
we are not above the Constitution.
We are not, but I am saying that we should let somebody from outside do it. Okay, then we will protect our house, because nobody is going to say it is an MPP or whatever. It is Parliament which is being called into question.
But you know the manner in which our Parliament conducts itself.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The minority will always have their say, but the majority will have their way.
Yes, but the institution does not, or it doesn't take anything away from the institution, or it dwindles the spirit that the institution of Parliament carries. So I thought that, yes, let somebody from outside who is not a member of Parliament, a lawyer like yourself, go ahead and do this. Then we in Parliament, the lawyers we have in Parliament, will rather come in defense of Parliament rather than members from our own stables. That when I say stables, Parliament, go and support such a thing to make Parliament look so weak.
Okay, I need to remind you that they are not the ones in court.
I am.
Just that
that's the point. But in the minds of the people,
profession.
In the minds of the people, that is what it means. Do you understand? First and foremost, if you believe, if you have that belief in Parliament and you wish to make it as strong as it ought to be, then you protect it. Even when a job is given to you, you look beyond what it will benefit, what will benefit you personally, and protect the house, the very house that you belong. And for me, that is how, the angle I'm looking at it.
But at the same time, you look also at the numbers that are showing up in the house as we speak, and then the lack of quorum issues that are coming up.
Those issues, let's throw a little light, more light into that issue. Listen, Parliament was supposed to rise on the 27th of July. And usually that is when we have our long break up to October, so that people can go and confer with their constituents and so on. We sat through till I think the 16th of August, and then we had a 2-week break. We came back again. So certainly, we are human beings. People are tired. That for me, I want to make it clear, and people are going to contest elections. So, of course, it puts pressure, whatever this CI is putting pressure on members of Parliament to be candid. But at the same time, once we have, it is our job. Next week, Saturday, we are even expected to go. Yes. So, for me, I think that this document has stretched the work of Parliament, and I think you go on record as one document that has really given us a hard time. But I think the posture should not also be made to look like we just want to reject anything because we are a minority and all of that. Let's allow some consensus on this matter. Okay. After it will pass anyway by God's grace. Whatever.
Now, with the injunction out of the way, certainly it will pass. But I ought to remind you that that is only an interim order, and that the substantive suits or the several suits will be heard subsequently.
Well, now, we'll be. I'm sure when we reach that bridge. You see, I carry this view. This ROPA thing. You see the controversy that surrounded it. What are we doing with it? Okay, so I also believe that yes, when this thing passes, and Ghanaians feel that we are not ready to use it or whatsoever, that becomes another subject for discussion.
Okay. Yeah.
No, they are seats. You have to run with them. Contrary to his worry, I am actually excited in terms of constitutional development, and in particular, that Kumbo was quoting Nanado, to former Attorney General. We've always said that Nanado was one of the people who grew this constitution, and Kumbo was using it as an authority. It was a very acceptable authority. And this is the man who is also promising free SHS to make a sea change to Ghana. You didn't hear that. Now, the courts, I have said before that if the court pronounced, everybody would fall in line. So the courts have pronounced. You can't have an injunction now. But the same court has told us that Parliament cannot make corrections to an instrument laid before it. And therefore, it places this matter squarely back in Parliament. Whether or not the majority approves, as he is saying, that by the grace of God it will be approved. I don't know whether the grace of God will make the corrections. But our hearing is that there are substantive mistakes in the CI 78, which again is based on an LI 1983, which has been annulled by the Supreme Court. So if the court itself has cancelled, when annulled means has cancelled, the legal foundation of the CI, which is going to create the new constituencies, and that CI happens to have mistakes in it, and it comes to the floor of the House, and the House accepts it, would it be valid in the eyes of the Supreme Court? It's a very interesting constitutional period we are in. The court says, go back and do your work. But at the end of the day, the quality of your work is subject to my interpretation. Because I have told you that if an outside body brings you a document and there are mistakes in it, you cannot correct that document in your house. You must send it back. So in this case, are the majority in a position, or is the House? Let me say the House. Because if we begin to say majority, minority, it creates the impression it's an MPP and DC matter, which it's not. It really is constitutional development, and it impacts the overall direction of this country, our stability, the quality of our upcoming elections. All of them are at stake. And therefore, it's not MBP and DC, it's this nation. So the question is, if this nation's parliament chooses to pass that instrument at its state, what happens? Will the Supreme Court annul it for the mistakes? Secondly, if the House chooses to not pass it because of the mistakes, and the EC withdraws it and comes back with another one, will there be enough time for that one to become law? And will that one be correct, given that the very foundation of it is wrong? Being the districts, the LI that has been cancelled, annulled by the Supreme Court, will it be correct if a new one is brought? So at this point, I think we should leave out whether or not the majority wants it or the minority wants it, and see how the governance processes within the various agencies engage. And please, once a lawyer, always a lawyer. A lawyer who is an MP on the minority side, in exercising his legal profession and understanding, cannot be tagged with the emotional rubric of wanting to stop the constituencies order. If the constituencies come into being, every political party in this country will be forced to contest them. And we will contest them vigorously.
But you know that there are cases that clients bring to you and you say, no, you don't want to have anything to do with those cases for moral reasons. That's the issue he's raising.
Everybody has a choice. I don't do criminal law. I only do business law. Because for me, my time is such, it's my time. I have very little time for litigation. And therefore, I like to do advisory law. I help small companies grow. That's business law for me. That's what I do. So you have a choice. You always have a choice. I also have an interest in constitutional law. I'm a governance practitioner. You understand? So for me, what we need to do now is to determine whether or not the Supreme Court decision as it stands makes any real difference to the substantive issue of whether or not the EC is acting within the law, within time, and will have the legal backing to bring those 45 constituencies into effect in time for the election. It's very critical.
Now, Kofi Adams, the Atachian has made a very interesting comment. He says that, look, what the court is suggesting is that when a car is going to crash, you watch it, allow it to crash, and then you rescue it. That's not the way to do. You stop it on its way to crash.
Supposing you're going to stop it, and that stopping may do damage to 75% of the car, and you can also assume that it's possible for the driver to get the car off the obstacle, get it off the obstacle. Which one would you want to do? I think that I knew very well that this was going to be the ruling, because it doesn't harm the plaintiff, especially where the substantive case is there. Because if on the 4th of October, the Supreme Court rules that all that has happened is legal, the Electoral Commission would have suffered more than the plaintiff who went to court, because they would have had a very limited time to do what constitutionally they are supposed to be doing. But if on the 4th of October, the ruling is given and the Supreme Court says that what has gone on in terms of the creation of the electoral areas is illegal, all they will add is that by so doing, the CI 78 is null and void, and therefore the old CI, which governs the 230 constituencies, would be used. So both sides would have suffered minimal damage, if any. But if you had placed an injunction on Parliament, and Parliament ceased to sit, and on the 4th of October, the court now goes to rule that what the Electoral Commission started was legal, constitutional, and right. Now you now have to call back Parliament and start counting days again. There would be no such time. So I think the ruling is fair for both parts. But you know what? The judiciary has done some pronouncements that is also contributing to some of these difficulties. That when a CI is placed before Parliament, Parliament has no right to make changes, even when they see that there's need to change. If that ruling had not happened, Parliament would have done changes to the CI by now and would not have been having all these troubles of withdrawing wholly the document and having to place a new one. If Parliament was allowed, because what is the essence of coming to put the whole CI before Parliament if they cannot amend it or add anything to it?
Because Parliament hasn't got the right to create constituencies. if the parliament amends an instrument creating constituencies within parliament, they will be taking up the job of the EC.
What I'm saying is that if they had allowed them to be able, they could have added the electoral areas that did not exist. They would have taken together with the EC. A way could have been found. I think that ruling that parliament cannot do anything to the CI when placed before them, they should only sit on it 21 days, they pass it wholly or reject it wholly. To me, it's not something that I would support. I would have wished that the subsidiary and then legislative committee is given some mandate together with the electoral commission to possibly make changes that will correct the document if there are mistakes seen in there. It's in the same spirit that in 2004, some of us were thinking that the constitution that says in creating constituencies, those constituencies will become acceptable upon the dissolution of the next parliament, was that those constituencies should not be implemented in 2004, but should be implemented in 2008. But at that time, it served a convenience. They said, no, there must be elections in 2004. So Supreme Court has given a ruling on that. And so now, if the constituencies are created, they must go to elections
this December.
Yes. So we really, and you see, the interference bit is also another area we must watch as we grow. It is true that we have separation of powers, but our constitution must be interpreted by one of these sections. If Parliament is doing something that is not right, the interpretation will necessarily be done by the judiciary. In the same way, maybe if the executive is doing something, and even if the judiciary itself is doing something that is not right, you still will have to go there for some kind of reviews or judgment to be done. So,
Boabing tried to give you a little explanation as to what goes into it. That each institution of the state is given a specific role to play. Yeah. So the role has been given to the EC to create the constituencies. Yeah. So that is their role. You don't allow another body. You don't allow another body to superimpose. That's why even after Parliament, that is why you need the presidential accent in making laws.
So we will continue debating it as a country. We will continue debating it as a country.
Bills are brought to Parliament. Unfolding.
Bills are brought to Parliament, sometimes with a lot of mistakes. It takes Parliament, members of Parliament to win all.
Then you have. So CIs, instruments, not bills. That's what instruments. They are not subject to editing.
That is what I'm saying.
Bills are subject to editing.
All right.
Yeah, that is what we have. Following what has happened to this CI.
All right, guys.
Or we think that we can enrich the process.
Guys, we don't have time. We don't have time. Let's move on. It's all right.
I think the point is in this matter.
So, Abdul Malik, let's hear Kokubako.
Only the Supreme Court can
determine.
Thank you.
Yes. Let's hear Kokubako.
So something can be done.
Only the Supreme Court.
Yes. The point Kofi was just making, the 2004 thing, and the fact that they were asking for it to be deferred. The Supreme Court made it clear. Once you create the constitution, the constituencies, if you read the constitution very carefully, it says next dissolution of parliament. Okay? Not dissolution of the next parliament. The next has been well placed. So it means that the parliament that is subsisting before you created the constituencies, okay, cannot have those constituencies. It's the next one. Yeah, you read it. This is clear.
But that's presently what is going
Article
on.
47,
yes, and that's correct. That's a correct
Article 47, clause 6, where the boundaries of a constituency established under this article are altered as a result of a review, the alteration shall come into effect upon the next dissolution of Parliament.
Next dissolution. And the Parliament will be dissolved 2012. Yes.
2013.
2013.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No.
In January, right?
So that's it. See, and the other point he made, if the CI comes into effect, that CI, is it 78?
78.
Or 73? 78.
78.
Okay. If it comes into effect, and I'm told by October 3rd or 4th, the substantive case is when there's not going to be judgment on October 4th.
No.
Yes.
That's when it's going to start.
That's the point. It's going to start. the effect, it means that CI 46 would have been revoked. Are we not clear in that? By 78. By coming into effect, CI 46 is revoked. So there's no way, if the Supreme Court ruled that CI 78 is illegal because of whatever impurities and things it may contain. No, I'm not sure the Supreme Court is within its remit to say that so restore CI 46. That's not how the instruments are created or they mature.
The revocation will be of no effect because the revocation takes effect if the 78 is legal.
No, so but when the 78 comes into being, if you read how they put the instruments, the final place you are told that this instrument hereby revokes.
Thank you. But what I'm saying is that
46.
That revocation is valid to the extent that the CI 78 itself remains valid.
It's valid.
So if the CI 78 is thrown away,
it's not valid.
then that clause in the CI 78 is dead.
You cannot revoke the other CI.
My street mentality has been enhanced.
You are very sound.
by this legal thing, and I hope so. Because otherwise, you see, to be honest with you, what happened last time was not so surprising in terms of the injunction. When I look ahead, assuming the Supreme Court, if you read this thing carefully, they were talking about, on the balance, the EC and the state will suffer more irreparable damage relative to the plaintiff. I don't see how the same court, using this logic, may not push this thing forward. I'm beginning to think the Supreme Court will not invalidate CI 78.
You have no choice.
I'm beginning to think so.
Okay, let's not
it's a
proceed.
hunch.
Let's proceed on that. Let's not proceed on that.
No, it's a hunch. It's a hunch. I'm entitled to express this hunch.
No, what we are entitled, what we are entitled to comment on is the injunction that has been ruled upon. Yeah, so now the court as it stands. Because
in delivering that judgment, the Supreme Court judge told us of the dangers. It was dangers that the Attorney General had painted, a picture of danger that the state will suffer. And the Supreme Court believed that.
I'm trying to stop you from entering into the realm of possible contempt.
No. I will not do that.
Okay.
I'm not. I am saying that I have a hunch.
Legal doctrine.
I have a hunch that we will be told that the danger that the state will suffer if CI 78, which would have become law by then, is invalidated, the state cannot handle it. They said, Attorney General says, I said the dismissal, it made a point that if by January 8, 2013, the EC does not exercise its constitutional power, we are likely to have no government in Parliament. I'm sure there's a problem there. And the judge was making the case, that if you look at the whole thing, the respondent, the plaintiff, has not much to suffer.
Okay, but may I also inform you? May I also inform you that there have been many situations where injunction applications have been dismissed, and yet the substantive matters have been successful.
I know that.
Okay.
No, let me be honest with you. If you asked me for a personal opinion, I wanted the Supreme Court to be the final arbiter. But my wish is also that the EC 78 thing should be declared illegal. That's my wish. Because I don't think it makes sense. Okay? Eventually, these matters will reoccur. And that's why, but the way I read this judgment, the pieces of the judgment that your own radio, your website has published, is giving me a hunch that
I want to address that hunch.
Bottom line,
all right,
CI 78 will not be invalidated.
All right.
There will be a government.
Okay, now let's.
Because we have 230
it's a hunch.
constituencies.
I'm not saying. I looked in the crystal ball, and I'm beginning.
There will be a government.
All right. So now let's move to the. Let's make this the very final issue to look at. The president this week named Emisa Arthur. The president this week named the vice president Emisa Arthur as his running mate for the 2012 elections. The president is certain of a one-touch victory and he speaks about Mr. Atta as the one who is going to bring, who's going to be the man behind the economic, acceleration of the economic development of this country. I'll start this on this note. I'll start with you. I started with him earlier. Yeah. I started with him earlier. I'll start with you at this point. And we have very limited time to do so. So go straight to your point.
I have a lot to say on this matter, but I'll try to be very, very tight.
I've heard some of your communicators, including Samir Uku, say that this is school chop for the NPP.
Yeah, because essentially, if he was selected, as the president himself has said, on ethnic and economic lines, ethnic to capture Central and Western, he's not known there politically, not even in his hometown. And if you come to the economy, total disaster. Total disaster. Did I hear him say that the economists, you don't need theory? On the day he was nominated, this is the man who mentioned 25 years of practical management of the economy without theory. Within those 25 years, systemic destruction of the industrial base of this economy. Systemic. Our economic foundation, 300, absolute liberalization without any local mediation. 300 enterprises sold, layoffs which killed families. The one single social intervention that they presided over, Palm Scat, failed. Failed totally. And then we ended up with the corruption reports about Mrs. Cotting and the IMF misreporting matters. This was the period when he was in government as a deputy minister at the Ministry of Finance. By the time we finished with that era, we're already in a rice and sugar economy. That's what they bequeathed us, a rice and sugar importing economy. Now, this is the man who, on his leaving,
you are finishing in a minute. I'm not going to interrupt any one of you.
Hippic. And in the bank as governor, his solution to curbing the black market, the CD slide, is to create a black market. If you bring your dollar into the bank, I'll seize it. So keep your dollars at home. And where else would it go? Now listen to the three indices Baumia. That's where I'll end. The three indices Baumia used to destroy the economy once and for all. And he hasn't responded to that. Dr. Kwabena Dufour, in 1998, said this. Then governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dufour. He spoke on the topic, the economy under 6 years of constitutional rule in Ghana, assessments and prospects. And he was discussing trends related to inflation, currency depreciation, exchange rates, and interest rates. These are the things that Dr. Baumia made a nexus to. Inflation to currency depreciation, exchange rates, and interest rates. And here, Dr. Dufour, he's being quoted here. Hence, the reduction in the rate of inflation during 1998 could be attributed largely to, there he goes, the subsequent slowdown in the rate of depreciation of the cedi as against the major foreign currencies. He's saying that when inflation reduces, depreciation reduces. No, wait. Given that Ghana is a price taker in global trade, changes in world prices for the exchange rate have a powerful direct influence on price levels in the economy. Relative to interest rates, Dr. Dufour said, in particular, in response to a sustained decline in inflation, interest rates have also shown marked decline with improved macroeconomic conditions. Here we are being told that we've had single-digit inflation for over 18 months, and yet the cost of living has shot up through the roof. That is, prices are depreciating faster.
So he won't help?
He will not be able to change
in the
a
economic
single
management
thing. He is part of the problem.
Mr. Duasari.
How can he be the solution?
Mr. Duasari.
He is the problem.
I wonder if you brought Jesus Christ to become the NDC's
candidate.
Don't need Jesus Christ, but he will do the job.
the running mate for John Mahama. Probably the criticisms will be worse. So I am not surprised. I mean, what do you expect? Very well rehearsed, marked, and polished to just try to denigrate the man from head to toe. But you see, thankfully, we think that the pair or the team that we have, NDC, we have a younger president. We have we will say we need people who can see beyond just this SHS business.
It's in your interest to ignore him and move on.
No, I will.
I'm stopping you in a minute.
We'll see beyond this SHS theory. We NDC love this free SHS thing, and we are working towards this, but we want to lay the right foundations before we get to the SHS, because we don't want our children to go to school for free under any tree. or under any thatched roof and all of those.
Corruption.
So you see, I was sitting here when you were talking, please.
Occupied.
All I'm saying here is that we have a team that is poised to maintain the governance of this nation in the next elections. And that is what is sending shivers down the spines of our opponents. Mr. Emisata has been in this country for so many years. He's saying nobody knows him even in his hometown. That is not true. I wish he was in Cape Coast the day after the president was buried. I wish you were there to see whether he's popular or not. Subsequently, he's been there.
Okay.
Let me also tell you.
So he's the addition that you need to do the one touch.
Yes.
It's
a big keke.
Yeah,
We've said it.
Like, we have
one touch, there will be no regard.
Sorry, thank you.
I don't doubt his competence in his chosen profession. I think he's a very fine gentleman as well. All those things are good for Ghana. For whichever party has such people, is good. We have a fine pool of presidential and running presidential and vice presidential candidates out there. It's good for Ghana. But my assessment of his introduction, what he did at the National Theatre. Thank you. He needs to work hard. It was as if he wasn't even able to look into the eyes of the audience or the camera.
Started Western.
Shy. He's a naturally shy person, a very gentle person. But politics on the road, especially campaigning, so he would need to enhance his visibility and articulateness, body language, in terms of communication skills. I think there's a deficit there. One has to be fair with it. He's been in politics for a very long time. And the fact that these negatives, minuses, quotes unquote, exist should tell you that he has a lot of work to do. He's been too much in the back room. Very effective, perhaps, all the time there. I mean, as for his competence, I'm not about to judge it. I don't think it will be fair when I don't have evidence to the contrary. But in terms of his political body language, campaign mode, there's a deficit. And he has to work on it very much.
Kofi?
Yeah, I think I could not better agree with Kweku that the selection of Mr. Pakwesi Emisata, Vice President, is more to benefit in terms of governance than as an electoral advantage. Because there's very little time and there is very little actually that in terms of political campaigning and adding of votes that he's going to be doing. But his competence in terms of helping in governance is what is going to be quite key. There has not been a time that we've had a vice president who contributed significantly to a success of a party than we had in 2008 in the person of our current president. Indeed, if he was selected in 2004, as was being pushed by our founder then, it could have been another bingo for the party. Look, President Mahama as vice president contributed so much that it's very difficult to get his type. But we take it that Mr. Pakwesi Emisata brings a lot of expertise, his experience, his economic background. As per the introduction of the president, it was more not to do with what votes he can bring on board, but it is more what he brings in when the party has won. Is what I believe.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Abdul Malik Kweku Bako Jr. is managing editor of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Honorable Kojo Eduasare, MP for Adenta. Mr. Kofi Adams, he is spokesperson for former ex-president Rawlings and still stands as a suspended NDC Deputy General Secretary. Yao Boabeng Asamoah is Deputy Director of Communications of the New Patriotic Party.